As you may have seen the announcement, gentlemen, 2 new banners are about to be released soon. Should you pull and build them? To clarify, I don't own these units, so I can't provide first-hand reviews or gameplay clips. My apologies for that. However, to simplify these banners, no, you don't need to pull Kano, because you already have Natsu, who is free to obtain from the shop. And no, you don't need to pull Eri either, because S.Mika exists. But what if you don't have Natsu or S.Mika? Should you get them then? Still no. Not having Natsu is basically impossible, and while not having S.Mika does make sense if you were too broke to pull her at the time, you still shouldn't pull on these banners right now. From a pure pulling perspective, they are not exactly must-haves. However, in terms of building, I would say Kano is a surprisingly nice and cute tanker. In short, Kano is essentially another version of Natsu. Her X skill allows her to dispel debuff from herself and heal at the same time. Unlike Natsu, whose heal is instant, Kano's healing is over time. It is not immediate, but still decent and reliable enough. Her other skills more or less retain the same versatility as Natsu, which is why she is mainly used for the Perorazilla raid boss. Now, how important is she? For casual players, not very. From what I know, you will really need her only for lunatic difficulty. For Torment and below, things are still manageable without her. Her main value is making things more comfortable for a second team. That said, there is also Rumi, who works quite well as a second team option. I personally use her often when my Torment 1 team clear turns into a malding session and fail. Rumi is not a tanker but a healer, and she is still capable of dispelling debuff from Perorazilla, which makes her surprisingly effective. Back to Kano, she is not particularly useful for other raids aside from Perorazilla. As mentioned earlier, she is basically Natsu 2.0, possibly slightly better. If you insist on pulling her for waifu reasons, then let's talk about her build. You should prioritize leveling her X skill to max first, followed by her sub skill and enhanced skill. I am not entirely sure how useful her basic skill is, so it is probably best not to invest in it without a clear reason. As for star investment, I cannot say for certain since I do not own her, but 4 stars should work just fine for Perorazilla. The other banner is Eri, another single target sonic DPS with a lot of self-sonic effectiveness buffs, and the ability to deal large damage by gaining stacks. Getting those stacks is simple in theory, but awkward in practice for boss fights. She gains a stack by killing an enemy, with a maximum of 2 stacks, meaning she needs to personally kill 2 enemies. When she uses her X skill with stacks, the damage is enhanced by 50%. I would say she is a decent sonic DPS for urban terrain, but I am not entirely convinced she will be widely useful. For urban content, we already have S.Mika, who always crits, which is already very strong. According to damage calculations, Eri actually deals lower damage even when buffed by Ryo, Kizuki, Diaru, and Hikari. She can deal around 5 million damage on a critical hit without stacks. S.Mika in comparison, deals around 7 million damage, which is higher, and she also has a much better kit that allows her to spam her X skill 3 times, resulting in roughly 21 million total damage. Eri on the other hand, can likely use her X skill twice, which also results in around 10 million damage without stacks. This assumes there are no mobs present. If mobs do appear, and Eri kills them to gain stacks, her X skill damage can increase from 5 million to around 7 million. The second X skill will likely be without stacks, resulting in roughly 12 million total damage. Even with all that said, while Eri sounds good on paper, there is still no strong evidence or proof that she is actually that impactful in real content. In the end, we casual players usually just bring S.Mika, ignore terrain penalties, clear the stage, and call it a day. Another thing to note is that Eri's X skill cost is an even number, which means cost reduction is less effective, though it still technically works. If you pull her for waifu reasons, then let's be honest about the build. I have no idea. It's your waifu, so build her however you want. To conclude, you do not need to pull on this banner. Kano is essentially Natsu but slightly better. While Eri is still uncertain in terms of where she truly shines, She is likely another urban Sonic single target DPS, but you can simply use S.Mika anyway. That said, if either of them is your waifu and you have enough Pyrex to spark, then go for it. Be happy, and have no regrets. So in the end, should you get Kano? No, you can simply use Natsu instead. What about Eri? Well, just use S.Mika. And that should be all. As always, Godspeed.